Hello everyone. Welcome to a new series on the podcast, and it's going to be it's a really cool series because the name is Digestive Diaries, and it's a really cool name where we're going to be me, Sarzy, Flic, Justan, and Rose. We're all going to be speaking about different things each episode we do about IBD because we all have IBD with Crohn's and every episode we're going to try and base it around different things because IBD can be a lesson in itself. But today today's episode is going to focus around IBD, workplace relationships, how IBD affects us, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of fun stuff. And then each episode we're going to focus around a different thing, and it's going to be like a monthly series, so it may not be every month, but we do it anytime we want, really. But yeah, other than that, it's going to be a really good series. I really like the name, Digestive Diaries. But yeah, it's going to be really cool. So I'm gonna get everyone else to introduce themselves. I'm going to go in order that it tells me. And then after that, we get on. We can go and talk about the lovely stuff of IBD. So Sarzy, I'm going to start with you. You introduce yourself first.
I'll do it. Hello, I'm Sarzy. I am a nurse consultant in Adelaide, South Australia. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at the age of 13, and at 24 I had a stoma formed, and her name is Susie. She's pretty famous, and I like to say she's my lifesaver. Yeah, I have a beautiful husband and 2 fur babies, and I'm currently undergoing fertility treatment as a result of my Crohn's disease, which I like to say is the gift that keeps on giving. Not necessarily in a good way, but I like to be a huge advocate for other Crohn's and colitis warriors out there, and also fertility warriors. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here. And yeah, and everyone meet your famous friend. Yeah.
Good old Susie. I've even got a tattoo on my arm with her name. So it's a good conversation starter.
Yeah. If you're out on the street, just do that, and then everyone sees it.
Flash it.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarzy.
Thank you.
Flic.
Hi everyone, I'm Flic Manning. I'm an author. I've read a book called Living Human, which is about my story of growing up with invisible illness, Crohn's disease. We can also add to that picture fibromyalgia, Raynaud's, and lupus, and early menopause. Lovely, lovely. So these are all the things, again, just as Sarzy was echoing, the gift that keeps on giving. Once you've got one of these lovely autoimmune conditions, quite often you end up with a bucket list of other things that go along with it, and that certainly has been the case for me. I'm also a broadcaster, so I host a radio show called Brainwaves, which focuses on mental health, and I'm an ambassador for multiple organisations as well. So I spend a significant amount of my time trying to advocate for people that are just like us, who are living a complicated life with a complicated body, and then trying to navigate a world that doesn't necessarily understand what those complications are, in the hope of just making it easier for the next person. Like Sarzy, I got diagnosed when I was 13 as well, and that's a really tricky age to be diagnosed with these kinds of conditions, and it does change your life fundamentally. So I just don't want any other 13-year-old sitting in a hospital feeling like as if the world has completely come to an end and that they're a burden, because they're not, and the world has not come to an end, and it's going to be a pretty amazing journey that they're on. So that's the bit about me, all in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's very great work. And like you say, age 13 is not an ideal age, really, is it, to get diagnosed with like IBD or anything? Because yeah, it is, because you're a kid, you're a child yourself, and you do stuff, and being hospitals aren't the best of places, but as we all know now, we're used to them. We're used to going to hospital and used to doing all that kind of stuff. But yeah, thanks, Flic. And it's great to have you here.
Pleasure.
Justan.
Hello, I'm Justan, and I've had Crohn since I was 2 years old. Like everyone on this call, I've gone through all the different types of medications and the different types of operations. I've got my ostomy. I've had my ostomy now for, I don't know, what feels like forever. I think it's been 14 years I've had it, or 13. I don't have a tattoo yet of my stoma, and I haven't named it yet. So, it's maybe we'll come up with a name. I mean, Rose helped me name it a few times. But I don't know, he's just chilling, right? So over the last 14 years, I've been focusing on how to turn my disability into a blessing, and I've done a lot of inner work when it comes to figuring out how I can really be on top of the dating game and being a young adult with Crohn's and IBD, navigating all the challenges when it comes to workplace and moving out and dating. So I created a course called How to Tackle Your Chronic Illness with a Positive Mindset, and I launched that for free. So that's for free online. And basically anyone who's really struggling and who's down and out and they're alone, they can go through that course and watch all the stuff that took me 14 years to figure out in the matter of under an hour. And it's my little gift. It's an easy course, easy, and all the exercises are easy. So yeah, that's my thing. And similar to Flic, I don't want any child to suffer in silence alone in hospital, because I was there, and I was a little boy and I had no friends and I had no one I could relate to. And it just means the world to me to give back and be that kind of buddy, right? There's so many different specialists, there's so many different people. They're like hanging over us, trying to look at us as our illness or as our condition. But at the end of the day, we are a human being, and that's the most important part, is to look at us and be like, no, you know what, we're a human first. Like, what, relate to our feelings and what we're going through, and help support us. So the new projects that I'm working on is learning to educate the people around us to be a better support system, not be that overburdening parent or support worker, and not be that really detached, you're on your own, the emancipation carer or parent. It's really finding that very cool and warm balance that brings everyone together and helps us feel like we're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I love that, Justan, because you have so many people doing like your course, and I think I remember when like a few years ago when you actually were in the process of making this course, and I think it's when you actually came on the podcast first. You was actually talking a lot about it, about what you want to do with the course, and at this point the course wasn't even a course at that point, was it? It was just in the middle of creating that course.
Absolutely, yeah. It was just a little idea, right?
Yeah, and now
Yeah.
you've got it going. So it is good what a few years can do.
Yeah, thank
with,
you.
with that. And I like you mentioned about relationships and dating, because I like that is one of the things that we'll go into more detail about today, because I think that's really important. Because it's hard to talk about that, especially in that kind of world. So yeah, I think it's going to be good to talk about that more, because it's one of those things that's not talked about. I think that because it's really shy, isn't it, to do that. So yeah, I look forward to talking about that more. And Rose, would you mind doing your introduction?
Hi everyone, I'm Rose. I'm a marketing professional and teacher in Sydney, and I have had Crohn's for most of my life, but unlike the others here, I was diagnosed pretty late. I was 27 when I was first diagnosed, after a long bout of illness, sort of being up and down. I've got a long list of comorbidities as well. So I've also got endometriosis, fibromyalgia, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome as well, which was recently diagnosed. And now we're looking down the barrel of an adenomyosis diagnosis too. So like the others, more chronic illnesses sort of seem to come into play once you're diagnosed with your first. I've worked hard to sort of create a bit of a community online to support people in advocating for themselves, because I found it incredibly hard during the 80s, 90s and the early 2000s to advocate for myself, because I didn't really understand what was going on inside my body, even though I knew what I was feeling. And I really want everybody, whether they're children or adults, to be able to say, this is how I feel, this is what I need, and I'm going to keep pushing until someone hears me, because I think that within the medical system, there's so many doctors who do want to help us, but don't know how to. I'm actually facing something today where a GP will probably not be able to help me out. So that's sort of where my intentions sit within the realm of IBD. I also have a stoma. I have a newly placed ileostomy, so that he is only 4.5 months old, and yeah, it's been pretty good to me so far. Can't really complain about it, but it's definitely given me a lot of my life back. Took my first train trip in several years last week, and I would not have been able to do that without my stoma. So I'm really excited about my journey with my stoma, because it's already letting me do things that I wouldn't have otherwise thought I'd be able to do. And I want to share that with people too.
Yeah, I think you keep so busy, Rose, doing all of your awareness and advocacy work. Like I think it's awesome, and like you say, you can get diagnosed with so many more chronic illnesses once you've got the first one. So it is like we say, it's not that great at the start, because I guess like every chronic illness will be different. And I guess they impact each other as well. So you may take one certain medication for one, and then another one chronic illness you have doesn't work with that. So I guess it's even more harder having more than one. And we say having one is bad enough on itself, and then having more, it's just not nice. And the hospital is just a new home, really, isn't it? At that stage. So yeah. But thanks, Rose, and yeah. So we got the introduction out of the way, yeah, I'm super excited to what this series is gonna do. It's almost like just a monthly catch up for us. So it's gonna be really fun. But I wanted to talk about first is relationships. Like maybe we could share our opinions. Like what I think about relationships is it's very hard to talk about it, especially with maybe someone that if you're with someone that hasn't got IBD, I think is the thing there, which can be really hard, because it's hard to explain IBD to someone that doesn't know what it is. And I think that the fact is that maybe a lot of people may find hard is if they could accept you for having maybe a stoma bone, maybe, or just having IBD in itself. So does anyone else maybe want to share maybe an experience with that, like dating with what having your IBD?
I can if you're not going to, Justan.
Yeah, I'll go after you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. I think it's important not just to talk about intimate relationships, but relationships with people that we just meet as well, because a lot of people don't really understand what IBD is. And I think that's why we all advocate and spread so much awareness to educate the public on what is IBD and what it's like to live with it. And because you never know, it could be your auntie, it could be your friend, it could be your colleague, and it's just a good thing that I think we're doing. But one experience that I can share with you is when I first met my now husband, and he had no idea what IBD was. And I had a shit bag. So that was a bit like, oh God, is he still going to think I'm good looking? Is he going to think I'm a weirdo? You know, I was very apprehensive about telling him about Susie. But I think and Justan always used this, confidence is sexy. I've heard you say that many times before, and obviously really confident about myself and my body and Susie. And I actually just shared links with him online about what IBD was and what a stoma was, and he was totally fine with it. It was all in my head. I mean, that's a very good experience. Not everyone has that, but I think because I owned the situation and I said, this is what my life was like before, this is what my life is like now, he was very accepting. So I'm very, very lucky. He doesn't think I'm a weirdo. He loves Susie. And yeah, that's a really positive experience, but I know that not everyone has that experience. So that's just one example that I can share with everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is it's good that you got a good experience out of that, I think, Sarzy.
Yeah, I love it. This is something that growing up was my passion, actually. Like, when I was going through school, I was concerned about two things. Number one, how much medication I'm going to have to take to get through school. And number two, when am I going to get my first kiss? And unfortunately, I was really timid and I was very shy back in school, and I had I didn't have a girlfriend. I couldn't talk to a girl and whatnot. And I remember I had a really big operation when I was just after high school. And one of my biggest worries was, what if I die a virgin, right? And I was like, I'm not going to let this happen. I need to at least have my first kiss. So I read a book called The Game. And back then that was a popular book, and that started me down the journey of researching and learning about mindset and techniques. And then I actually hired one of the guys from the book to be my mentor, two of them actually, and coach. And so I spoke to one of the guys, his name's Brent Smith, and it was just so lovely. Like, where I thought this was going to be a call about what to say to a girl to get her interested into me, it was a complete opposite. He taught me how to really see myself and love myself for who I am. And so I remember that call. He was saying like, all right, Justin, now you've got to see yourself as sexy, and you got to say everything about you, everything about me is sexy. My bag is sexy. Scars are sexy. Being Indian is sexy. And you've got to really believe it, because whatever you believe to be true is what will be true. So if you believe up until now that your bag and your Crohn's isn't sexy, people are going to believe it, because you're just going to filter the world through that reality. So I started saying to myself, my bag is sexy. My Crohn's is sexy. It's the sexiest thing about me. Why is it sexy? Because people are inspired. They're like, wow, you're so inspirational. Or like, whoa, you got these really cool scars. Like, it's different, you know? And so having that, I felt like I was lying to myself. And I said to him, like, I feel like I'm lying to myself. And he said, well, you're lying anyway by saying to yourself it's not sexy, because there are people out there who feel that it is sexy. So which lie do you want to tell yourself? The one that makes you feel a bit more better? I was like, yeah, I want to feel that one. So I started to believe it, and I started to accumulate all these little different experiences. So I would go to the shopping center, and I would talk to the cute girl behind who was helping you with your clothes, and she'd be friendly. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she was friendly. She's friendly because I have my Crohn's, and it means I was sexy. And it was like, I didn't tell I had Crohn's, right? But it was just really in my mind. I was trying to build this identity and feel like undoing the old programming. And that list just got longer and longer and longer. And then I just started dating lots. And then I was like, well, I wonder, like, how much have I lied to myself about this? So I set out a goal. I'm like, I watched Magic Mike. I'm like, I want to be Magic Mike. I wonder if girls will like find that sexy, a bag, a skinny Indian guy with a bag. So I did that. And then I didn't like, I would say the world's first stripper with a colostomy bag. So I did that. I did a big show and all the women in the crowd were like screaming, going crazy. And then, and then I went down my dating journey and I was like, I wonder if I can have a one night stand with a bag. And it happened. And I remember the first time, like, the girl came home with me and she looked at the bag and she's like, oh, does that hurt? I'm like, no. She goes, okay. And then we just did the deed, and it was totally fine. It was like, whoa, why was I holding back my whole life from this? And then I just pushed. I'm like, I wonder if I can have a threesome with my colostomy bag. And then I did, and it was like no one cared, no one was fazed by it at all. And I was like, wow, this is really just all to do with my mindset. And here I had my friends who were complaining and saying like, oh, dating is so hard, and like dating is like such a tough thing to do. And I'm like, you're a fully able-bodied person. I've got Crohn's and I've got a colostomy bag and I'm like ethnic, which back then wasn't a good, didn't really help you when it comes to dating, right? Because all like Indian people were really sleazy back then. And they were like white and they were like just normal. And I found it just so interesting that they were like behaving and thinking and seeing world through a different lens. And now I've got an amazing girlfriend. She's recording me right now, looking over my shoulder, and so supportive. So it is really down to what you try and what reality you try and create, because ultimately it's a big step to create a reality. You've got to believe it. You've got to kind of be the best person possible and create a very positive reality. And once you do that for long enough, like you'll start changing the world and changing how the world occurs for you, So that's my little, I think that's the shortest I've ever told that story. And so, yeah.
Justin, that's awesome. That's so cool. And on a side note, you're going to love the new book I'm writing because it's all about self-talk, the neuroscience of it. And you are like a living example of exactly how all of that works. And I can definitely echo this sort of similar thing. And I don't have a stoma. So like I have Crohn's disease. It's all in, so that you can't see anything on me at all. There's no one's going to know by looking at me that I've got that. But if you spend enough time with me, it's going to become apparent that I have got a chronic illness. And that was definitely sort of what the situation was for me growing up. And much like you, Justin, I had no self-esteem. I had no confidence at all. I didn't have boyfriends or girlfriends or anything, through high school and everything. I was just this gaunt, really unwell kid that was just trying to basically fake my way through day-to-day life. And I would wear these extremely ill-fitting, baggy clothes, like big black cargo pants. You literally couldn't tell what shape I was under there. I was just a bag of bones with some clothing on the outside. And I would do all this defensive sort of stuff. Like I wore a dog collar to school and big black eyeliner and, like metal chains, and like everything was just this big protection and holding people away from me. And when I look back at it now, I can kind of see that I was literally building this big barricade around myself to try and protect myself, because all my experiences with adults and even trying to explain Crohn's early on to people at school and everything just had people making fun of me. I was bullied the entire way through school, completely bullied. And so I had a lot of experiences where, I'd be outside the classroom crying privately to myself just to try and get enough of the emotion out of the pain and everything so that I could then sit in the rest of the class. And so I had no confidence at all when it came to relationships. And so really my first relationships, I think, honestly sort of came out more like out of desperation than anything, because like you, Justin, I was like, when am I going to get my first kiss? When is somebody going to pay any attention to me. I was so desperate to be validated because I had no inner validation at all, that I ended up picking really, really bad people to have relationships with, frankly, when I first came out of high school. Some really, really bad characters that I went out with. And those people only served to make that self-esteem much worse, because I wouldn't talk to them about the Crohn's. I didn't know how to have that conversation with them. But then as the relationship would go on, they would see that I got sick more than other people did. I would always had colds and flus and sinus infections and bronchitis and, and gastro and all these kinds of things. And that out of nowhere, I could kind of go down really, really quickly. And my mental health would go down alongside all of that. And that actually made me a target in a way for bullying in those relationships, because as I said, I wasn't with good people. I was with people that liked the power dynamic of seeing me as this vulnerable, weak person, and that they could be this almighty, powerful other person in the relationship. So I can kind of see how having that lack of ability to advocate for myself, that lack of ability to connect with other people really led me on this horrid relationship path for a while. And it really wasn't until I met my now husband that started to change. And he was the first person that would be willing to at least have the conversation. If my body was doing something and he didn't understand it, he could ask me questions about it and I could explain what was going on or try and talk through what my feelings were. And, he's been there through, we've been together for like 20 years in June. We've been married for 15 of those. And so he's seen such a huge journey in terms of my personal development and my physical changes, all the ups and downs, the medications, the everything else that has happened along that way. And I think really one of the key things has certainly been working on my own mindset, definitely being willing to sit with my trauma and my pain and all the things that I went through as a teenager and all the things that I went through in those early relationships. And to do that without blame to myself for going, oh, I should have picked better people. I should have done this. I should have done that. And actually just gone, this is the situation you were in. Your brain made choices on your behalf at a really young age to try and protect you, to keep you alive, because that's its primary job, is survival. And you did that. You survived it. But now that you are older and you've got those skills, you need to unpack this stuff, because the longer it sits inside you, the worse it's actually going to make actually all your chronic illnesses anyway, let alone your mind, and to sort of start pulling those things apart. And it's been such a huge journey. And now I can really have that completely open conversation, not only with my husband, but I'm much more comfortable now having it with anybody and everybody. I will comfortably talk to a complete stranger about Crohn's disease or mental health or fibromyalgia or lupus or any of the other stuff that is going on without hesitation. And I use all of those things as opportunities to educate. And that's been really handy even in things like navigating food, which I know sounds like maybe a strange thing, but when you are sitting down with, maybe it's your in-laws, maybe it's your family members or whatever it is, and you're a person that's got heaps of food sensitivities and you've got allergies and things like that, a lot of people don't understand how serious that stuff is. And so they'll say, just eat it, and so to get comfortable to the point of being able to say, I'm not eating that, it is going to make me ill, or bringing something along that you can eat, or educating them on, this is why I can't have those things. Those things are really good opportunities to spread information about IBD broadly and to practice advocacy, because I think when we think about like relationships, we think about sitting down with someone, having this big formal conversation about, well, I've got Crohn's disease and it is blah, blah, blah. But in real life, it's these tiny, minute little things that come up in everyday life that accumulate. And people need to understand the layers of having a chronic illness. It's not just, oh, well, for 3 days of that week, I'm completely out for the count. They need to understand that every day you are making hundreds, if not thousands, of calculated strategic decisions about how you're going to function that day, the next day, a month from now, 3 years from now. And so part of your mind is constantly at work thinking, okay, I've had that and I'm feeling this, I need to adjust that. What's my schedule? How do I fit? Like everything is a constant moving target, where I think able-bodied people have a very linear timeline of their day. And it doesn't necessarily matter what they ate at breakfast versus what they ate at dinner versus what they've got coming up tomorrow, thinking about how much sleep they've had, who they've been in contact. Like, they don't have to make the calculations and strategic decisions that we do every hour, every day for the rest of our lives. And so I think it's a really important thing to have those minute conversations and to look at all of those things as opportunities for education. And once that's happened for long enough, they start doing it for you. It's amazing how my husband will step in and sort of say, hey, have you thought about, I think maybe you need to take a little rest break now. Or if I'm having a pain flare, he's like, all right, what do we want? Do we want heat? Do we want ice pack? Do we want this? Do you want ginger beer? Do you want water? Like, he's so educated now that in amongst when things are happening to me, he's just there kind of helping me to navigate all of those tiny little decisions that I need to make. And having that support system is so important, but it takes time, and it does take having the layered conversation over and over and over again until it's normalized, because that's what it is. We're just normalizing it. So anyway, I think I've talked too long, but you get my general gist.
That's interesting. Like, I really love that, because it reminds me of an analogy, Flic, of like being like Ronaldo. So having a disability is very similar to being a professional athlete, because you have this team that constantly are helping you tweak up your performance, so like Ronaldo's got his like kicking coach, and he's got his personal chef, and he's got his like personal EA that's making sure that he's on time, and so on and so forth. So it is very similar, like having a disability. Instead of looking at it like, oh, we're someone who's like needs so much support, we're just, the difference is we have this, it's just the status, right? One is a professional footballer and one is a disability, but on the same time, we have that team with us that is helping us operate at our peak performance. And so I think using like that kind of mindset is something that is really helpful, and something that just occurred to me recently as well is like, it is like having all your performance coach people around you, and it's like, and it's really interesting about the whole educating people around you about what to eat, and or even like going out and drinking. I used to like battle that for so long, where people would be like, come on, have a beer or have a drink, and like I tried every trick of the book. I spent hours just arguing with somebody. I can't drink this is bad for my health. Come on, just do it. I'm like, I can't drink it. And then I spent hours doing that, and then I spent hours like I folded, and I drank, and I kind of beat myself up really, and I paid the price for doing that for days, because I would just be so crook. And then also I learned other techniques, which were like just to take it and then pretend to sip it, and just like, and then they'll just shut up, And even with food, like Indian families were like that too. They would just like layer on curries and things like that, and I just have like I'll pretend to have a nibble, and they're like, oh, why aren't you eating? I'm like, oh, I'm full, and just all that back and forth. So yeah, there's a lot of social pressure with that, but with that being said, it's important to learn the different tools and techniques to get around that, because sometimes you just don't have time, and you just want to hang out, right? And it's just interesting, because I used to get really upset with those people, but then I now realize they just care, and they're caring in their own way that they don't really understand the impact of,
There's a really funny thing that happened over Christmas. So let's give you a bit of an example of kind of how I navigate that. So my relationship with my in-laws is okay. I'll say it's polite. It's not necessarily much greater than that, but it's okay. We get along all right. But they've really, really struggled to understand that I have a chronic illness, and they live in a different state, so we don't see them very often. But when we do, I would find myself repeating the same conversations over and over again. And I found it really baffling, like even when my book came out, that they didn't understand why I would be writing a book about having a chronic illness, because to them, they just couldn't put the pieces together. They still look at me and go, you look like you're a normal person, relatively functioning. But again, it's just people having that sort of internalized ableism and not being able to kind of grapple with that. But because I'm so used to it, I'm very confident. And as like you were saying before, I think the confidence sells everything, right? So I just go in and I do my thing and it's fine. But anyway, some people came here for Christmas to Melbourne, which was really, really nice because normally we have to go back to Perth. And my job, everyone was given a task of what food they would make. I got given dessert. And this is for like 25, 30 people. So it's a lot of food to organize. And I'm sitting there thinking, great, of all the things I've been given dessert, this is like one of the hardest categories that you can probably be given if you're somebody with Crohn's. But of course, I knew that there was people coming along. So I used it as a really good opportunity to unpack things and to present it the way that I want to see the world, the way that I think the world should be presented to all people, because there are so many different dietary needs, and that stems into other people's well-being, their health, their perspective on the world, their identity. Like, I know how layered food on a plate actually is to a human being. And so I really wanted to present that properly. So I made all of these different types of food, lots of sort of finger foods and things like that, still some of the traditional Christmas stuff. But I made sure that there was food that was vegan. I made sure that there was food that, was gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, sugar-free. Like, I did all of the things, as well as also having some of the more normalized foods there. And on all of the containers, I hand wrote out all of the ingredients on every single thing that was in all of the different food. They were all packaged up individually. And I put all the main things on top, like this is gluten-free, dairy-free, whatever, like this is vegan, blah, blah, blah. And I put it there. And it was really interesting to see their reaction to it. So I'm laying it all out on the table and people are like, oh, there's all this stuff written on it. And they're looking at it and I could see kind of the cogs turning. And then a few people were like, oh, this is a great idea. Like, oh, okay. And they were picking up and going, oh, no, I can't have that one. Or I can have, and it didn't occur to them that that level of accessibility could exist in the world, that somebody could actually just go to the effort of taking 30 seconds to write down what the ingredients actually were so they could make an informed decision about what goes into their body. And I knew that one person there who has also got some food intolerances would really understand it. And they just looked at me and they just sort of winked, like, very smart decision. Like, this was really, really good to do this in this room. And I've actually had a few comments since about having made that choice, because people looked at it and went, oh, she really put in the thought, she put in the effort, everybody in the room was catered for. There was nobody in the room that didn't have something on that table that they could eat if they wanted to, because I made the effort of asking, what are people's accessibility needs? What are your allergies? I thought about it, I put it together because I know how important that is. And it started a conversation, and it started an ongoing conversation, and it made people realize how easy it is to actually do little things like that make a big difference to somebody feeling comfortable in a space and feeling like they have an empowerment to make a choice for themselves. And so I know I'm using food as the example, but to me, that is part of how relationships work. It's laying it out there and it's saying, this is how I want the world to treat me. I'm confident in who I am, and I want the world to know that I can participate at this dinner table with all of you, but this is how it needs to be done for me to safely participate at this dinner table with you. And then all of a sudden it becomes easier for people to go and break down their own conversations. People were talking at the table about, well, I have noticed that when I eat this thing, it does make me feel a bit funny. So I've been avoiding that. And these are conversations they were not having between each other until I'd been the conduit by putting those labels on there. So I think really it's about those sorts of things, of whether it's displaying, making it so sometimes maybe your stoma is visible or your bag is visible, or going out and doing things like maybe you're going to do a marathon or whatever it is that you're going to do, and you're using that as an opportunity to talk about those things. But there's so many little ways that we can educate people, and just making one little decision can allow 25 or 30 people to sit there and start unpacking their own thoughts and their own mindset and really thinking about their own lives. And I think that's the real power of what something like IBD and having a conversation about it can actually do. And it can do it in every facet of your relationship, but it's about owning it and having that confidence, and then saying, this is how I want the world to treat people, and being that person. And when you start being that person, not only do you feel like loads better, and it feeds on your own confidence, so you become more confident anyway, but it allows other people to feed off that same confidence and then confidently talk about their own stuff, and then we all, you know, get more vulnerable, more empathy, more connection. It's a win. It's a win on all fronts.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there, Flic. I agree with what you're all saying, because it is really good, and I think it's actually really good when someone doesn't maybe know, or maybe even it's really important if it's a family maybe person that doesn't really know, or who doesn't maybe accept it, because I think I always say the amount of times you go on about maybe IBD to someone and they find it annoying, I think that's when you know you're doing the right thing. Because I think that's when feelings don't come into it. I think that you just go on at them and say, like, sometimes you may feel like you say it a lot and you shouldn't maybe say. So I think sometimes you may feel like that you say, I've got Crohn's. The amount of times I say that to people, and I think, oh, I've said it. I've said it over and over again to different people, and it comes to a point where maybe to my friends who don't have Crohn's, oh, they just know, it comes to a point they know I have Crohn's. They know that, and I know they know that they don't know as much about it as me, because I don't expect them to do. But I know that I know they're not going to know everything about it. So if they're going to ask me to meet up, and I'm going to say no, and they're going to ask me why, and I'm going to say I can't because maybe this week I've got blood in my stools. But I'm not going to say that to you, because it's just something I'm not going to say to you, because I don't know how you're going to react to that. Like, I don't know how you're going to react to seeing blood. I'm not going to show you the blood, but if I did show something, maybe on social media, if I show blood, I put a caption, say blood, wanting blood, because not everyone likes blood. It's not a blood. Crohn's is a bloody thing, isn't it? Really. So it is annoying that we do get blood. But yeah, like that's the thing with relationships. Like, and the thing with relationships is what I found really complicated is text. Text is just not very good in relationships. I much prefer a phone call or something like this, a video, because things get the wrong end of the stick. And the thing is with if you're dating someone, maybe in a romantic level, we're saying a person that maybe you're starting off, not like Flic, we've been together 20 years. We're going back maybe 20 years ago now, to the beginning, and I had a little experience with this as well during I had a partner during it was funny. It was funny how it all happened, because it was at the start of lockdown in 2020, and what happened is we didn't know each other, so we chatted, and then we met. We met outside the bus stop where I live, and I said, and I explained my Crohn's all via text. I explained it. We had a few FaceTime calls, and I said, this is what Crohn's is, and then I said, and they say, can you meet me where the Tesco's is? And I said, no, I can't, because it's too busy. I can't. It's too busy. It's something I can't do. And then as time went on, we did meet, but the thing is, we couldn't hold hands because of COVID, and I don't think that this certain person wasn't as safe as me. And I didn't expect them to be as safe as me, because I just didn't expect that. And as time went on, we ended up being together about a year, and at the end, I didn't really class it as a relationship, because we didn't do anything. we didn't even hold hands. I said, I even said, as we saw each other, I said, I understand if you don't want to be with me anymore, because I wouldn't want to be with like, we can't do anything. We can't hold hands. Like we're there next to each other, and meets up, and we're saying, she's saying, I want to hold your hand. I said, I know, but I can't. I can't risk it. And Even now, it's even tough now. Even like pandemic over, a lot of people over the world, it's still there. It's still there in the air, and it's still there. So it's even much so throughout the pandemic. It's been very much hard. And then we ended it. It wasn't anything to do with the Crohn's, I don't think. I think it was to do with trust in the end. I think she did want to end it at that point, but I just don't think she was being truthful at a certain point of view. And I think trust is a very it's really hard to trust people, I think, and trusting people, anyone, is hard. Like we could talk about like consultants and GPs, but that's another episode. But yeah, trust is one of those things, and like Justine says, like, we don't want to die a virgin, and like that's my we always worry about that, and like you say, things happen in a moment, but at the moment in my world, nothing's happening at the moment because I'm having to be really safe. Like at this moment in time, I spoke to Sarzy earlier about I went to football today, as we're recording this, and this was the first match I went to this season and the last match I went to this season, and it was really funny, because when I got there, we were sitting in my seats for a little bit, and it was packed. You imagine it was packed because my team get promoted. They got promoted and everything, all flares, all balloons and everything like that. But the thing is, I'm there sitting in my seats, 5 and 6. They were number 5 and 6, and then you've got people coming in really late, so maybe 10 minutes till kickoff, saying, "You're on my seat," and saying stuff like that, and so no, I'm season ticket holder, and I know they would have come there, like they would have got their friend to sit at our seats, my family seats, and I said, yeah, and then they had a conversation, I think, with my mum, and because I was concentrating on the football, I wasn't concentrating on talking, but what they said is, are you a one-off, or are you going to come more? And at this point, we didn't explain, so I didn't say I got Crohn's. I didn't say any of that because I'm not going to say that to a person maybe I don't know, and it's not going to benefit them. They're not going to go away, I don't think. They're more concentrating on the football match than me educating on a lesson about what Crohn's disease is. But yeah, I would only say what Crohn's is if it benefits them, and but yeah, that was a thing that it's really hard because that was probably the most risky thing I've done this year. I would say I have done other risky things. I did a speech a few weeks ago, and I'll tell you a little story about that in a minute. Before I hand it over to someone else, because I feel like I'm talking for England here. But throughout to get into the football stadium, I went through a long crowd. Like, as you can imagine, when you're in crowds and you don't want to go near people, holding my breath, saying we're going in. I didn't think it was going to end because it was like a parade, of course, but for the game, getting the coach coming in. So yeah, I'd say that was one of the most risky things I've done this year, and it's one of the things I wanted to do because I'm not going to go for a few months if I do go to the next game of the next season, which will probably be in August. But so for this speech I did, I did a speech about autism and sport because I wanted it to be sport to be more accessible for people with different maybe disabilities, because I feel like sports is the same sports every time, like everywhere, like maybe in schools and stuff we do the same sports every year, and I want to change it so it's more better for people that maybe can't do it. So maybe if you've got Crohn's or something and you can't do a certain sport, let's introduce new sports to the curriculum and stuff. But I did my speech and workshop, so I did workshops about that with another person, and then of course I'm going to say at the end, come see me if you have any questions for me. I'm more happy to answer them. And this wasn't a Crohn's related workshops, and other than the people that know me will know I have Crohn's, but random people are coming across the place to come to this event, and they come to me, and they there's no personal space really, and I say you got to step back, And then, of course, you know what I'm going to say now is because when you greet someone, a handshake comes into place. And then maybe me, because being immunocompromised and cancer drugs I take, I say, I can't, I don't do handshakes. I'm sorry, I don't do it. And then the first few times, I got a really good response saying, I'm sorry, I should have thought about that, which I agree in a certain extent. But a handshake is a form of respect, I guess. But the one situation that wasn't friendly, I came across. So after I did my speech, I had to introduce this other person, and before I did that, I got showed who she was, and as soon as like we're there, and they said, "Hi," they explained who I am, and then this person said, Great to meet you, Mason." And then hands out there, and I said, "I don't do handshakes," but at this point, I don't get time to explain why. But the person's response was, "Great," just one word, "great." And then me being me, you could she could either mean great as sarcasm, or you could mean great as, "Oh, great, I don't want to shake your hand." And then me going away to the person who was like the lead, like the curator of the event. I said, I didn't want her to get the wrong end of the stick. Like I didn't get time to explain it around the reason why, because in fairness, I don't know where your hands have been. I don't say that to people because it's just rude. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to shake your hands because I don't know where your hands have been before. Because that's really the whole reason why I don't want to shake your hand. Like today at the football, actually, the amount of people I saw as they're going down the steps to their seat, put their hands on the railing, and then they sit down. And I'm actually in the car for the match. And then you got the hot dogs and people getting their burgers, and you got the ketchup you put on there. The amount of people I've seen, they've got their burger, and they've gone to put ketchup on it. They put ketchup on it, which I've seen numerous people have, and they've touched it. No one's washing their hands, and then they've done that. And then what they've done after that, they've eaten it, they've licked their fingers, they've done all that. And then I'm just we're in the car, and I said, I can't watch this. But the worst thing is, before the match, I was going to get a pie. I was thinking, I'm going to get pie. I thought, why not? I have some nice food before the match. And then I go to the till. And what I see is that they handle the money, and then not even that. The I didn't ask. I was watching, and I saw the till lady put her hand on the top of the pie to see if it's hot or not. And I thought, nah, I'm okay. I'm not having it when you're touching it. If you have the glove on, maybe. But yeah, it's just crazy how many people spread germs that way, and then we wonder why we have the pandemic. We're having a pandemic. You don't get it. Like, it's just personal hygiene. It's nothing to do with having IBD, nothing to do with having Crohn's. It's just hygiene. Yeah.
It's like being in a sticky preschool, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to
That
just
stuff
add on
gives
that
me the
quickly.
nightmares.
Oh, I hate
Yeah.
it too. And like, obviously being a nurse, it's like, because of having a chronic disease and growing up immunocompromised, and I have been recently because I've been on prednisolone, I'm anal about that stuff. And I've taught my husband, see, this is the education and the relationships thing, on how to be hygienic, because he's a normal bloke that just like, I'm like at the shops, don't touch the rails when you're going down the escalators, wipe everything down, da 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 da. Now he's like me because of the education and teaching people how you want to see the world. Like Flic said, like teaching people how to be safe, teaching people that there are other things, and you need to think about other people. It's not just about yourself. And so, Mason, it's,
Yeah. What about when, like, Sarzy, what about when someone coughs or sneezes around you?
Oh, no.
And they don't even cover their mouth.
No.
I went into the post office the other day, and there was a line of maybe 5 or 6 people in front of me. So I walked in, of course, this is me. I'm wearing 2 N95 masks. I've done my Enovid nasal spray. I've done my CPC mouthwash. I'm like hand sanitizing. Like, I'm safe. Like I have to be safe, right? And so I've walked in and there's just this line of people and they're just hacking up a lung. Everyone's coughing and smoking. Not one person's covering their mouth, and it's this enclosed environment. They've got the heater on. It's literally hot when you walk in there, and I'm just going, bye. I was meant to send a package to a friend of mine, and I literally sent her a message saying, you're not getting your package this week, because I just went in and there was like a line of like a disease line basically in front of me. Nah. It's just there's so many things that you've got to navigate. And like you said, Sarzy, it's about educating. Like my husband's the same now. He's, he uses the hand sanitizer and he does all of the things and all that. Everywhere. But that wouldn't have been like that without sort of probably me, number one, being immune compromised and there being that extra risk factor, and then kind of just displaying it all the time. Like, here's the thing, I'm doing all these things and all that kind of stuff. And, saying to people, yeah, we can meet up, but we need to sit outside. Like, I'm not sitting in an enclosed environment with you. Like, I love you, but can we go for a walk on the park? Like, I'm not sitting inside a restaurant with you. No, I'm not. Like, I love you, but I love my life even more. So I like being alive. So that's all there is to it. It's really hard at the moment though, because most people are pretending that it's all over. So it's tricky.
Well, go into some places like that as well. And I've found that if I look at someone who's coughing, they'll go, oh, it's not COVID, it's not COVID. And I think to myself, I don't care if it's COVID or not. I don't want to catch anything. And, it's just, there's that mindset of if it's not COVID, it's okay. But no, it's not. It's not okay. And just on back to relationships though, I've been wanting to say this for a while, like listening to Justan's story especially, because I kind of went through parts of it with him, and hearing it again has reminded me of his growth through his relationships as well, and his development through his relationships. And it's absolutely mind-blowing. Like, just hearing that snippet of the story, I don't think people will actually realize the magnitude of Justan's growth, especially in terms of relationships. And I've said it a million times before, and I'm going to say it again. I'm super duper proud of him and I love him so much. And I'm just like blown away by the amazing human being that he is and the friendship that we have got. So yeah, I just had to put that out there, because I think he's one of my, I know that he's one of my enduring friendships and one of my most successful relationships. But and I'm so grateful for you, Justan. Love you, mwah. And I love you too, Liz.
Love you.
Thank you so much, Rose. Thank you. Like, yeah, you've been that you've been my rock for forever, and I wouldn't be the strong man I am today without you. It's like, yeah, you have seen me through everything. Like, Rose, how do I talk?
Oh, I remember the first time you told me about that threesome, and I nearly fell off my chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting day. But yeah, I mean, going through that whole how do I talk to girls thing, and seeing you come to the dance studio that first time as well, being so shy and so timid, and seeing myself in you as well, because I still am shy. Like, the confident person that you see here is I guess it's me being confident in my abilities, confident in speaking. But if I was in public, I would not start a conversation with someone unless it was something like, we're out in the sun and I'm standing next to someone and all of a sudden it starts bucketing down rain. I might make a little comment about that, but I would not walk up to someone and start a conversation with them. And I think that is a lot of that has to do with feelings of unworthiness in the past. So I guess illness for me has made me feel like a burden and unworthy of those relationships, the deep, meaningful, solid foundational sorts of relationships that people need to go through life with. And seeing Justan come into the studio that time, I know now for me that my relationships with people within that scope were very superficial. And you know, people would ask me to go out with them and I'd say no, because I'd just be so exhausted from just having to fight and get through the day every day. And people never understood that. And, you know, you say no a few times to a friendship group or to someone who asks you out on a date, and, you know, they forget about you. And, you know, that I guess a lack of understanding of how people only see the world through their own lens really does make you feel like a burden and make you feel unworthy. And I'll be honest, it's only since getting the stoma that I realize how amazing I really am and how much I do deserve love and those, you know, those foundational strong relationships. And you know, I think that Justan and I having that common bond of IBD has made it easier for us to have an enduring friendship. But in terms of romantic relationships, I never felt worthy. And I would, you know, I would have crushes on men that were sort of inaccessible because I knew that I was protecting myself because I'd never be able to have a relationship with them. So, you know, have a crush on a married man in the office or something like that, but never do anything about it, of course. But, you know, it's so much easier to just have a crush on someone that is so far away from you or so inaccessible that, you know, the rejection doesn't hurt. Because I did go through periods where I tried online dating, tried the apps, and basically the only men who really showed me interest were men who wanted a one-night stand, and I'm just not capable of that sort of thing. So you know, having intimacy or sex is so easy for anyone. You know, you say I want it and you get it, basically. But when it comes to having those deep relationships, it has been difficult for me. And it might be that, you know, those earlier instances of rejection or difficulty have made me believe that it's difficult. But it's only been recent months that I've really gone, hang on a second. No, I do deserve, you know, a partner. I do deserve love. I do deserve the best friendships, the best relationships, regardless of the type, that anyone deserves, because I am inherently worthy and, you know, I'm capable of being close to people. But like Flic said before, having that guard up and protecting yourself, I didn't wear, you know, the metal collar or anything like that. But, you know, I kept people at arm's length for a very, very long time in my life. And it's only recently that I've allowed myself to be vulnerable and let people see who I really am. And I think that all of my relationships have improved a millionfold because of that. And I'm hoping that, you know, once I get my Barbie butt surgery and I am feeling better, I will be able to get out into the dating world and find myself that partner that I truly deserve.
Yeah, absolutely, Rose. Like, that's so powerful. You know, we all go through that. We all go through that phase of vulnerability, because it is one of the most vulnerable things about us, is our poop and our disability, or our, you know, our situation. And I remember, like, when I was in school, and like, I think I can't remember how old I was, but Rose was working with my mum at the time. And my mum was like, oh, you know, there's a girl who I work with and she's got Crohn's. Yeah, was right. And she's like, you know, this girl, she's got Crohn's disease and she's like a dancer, and she's like working with me. And I always was like, whoa, this person is like a celebrity. Who are they? I want to meet them one day. I was so inspired. I'm like, holy moly, this person actually goes out dancing and like performs like, and I was like, who is this? And they got a job as well. Like back then I was so bedridden. I was just afraid of going to school, and I was just like concerned with going there and coming back. So Rose was you were a big source of inspiration for me, and like yeah, that really you really helped me, harbor my vulnerability, because you just like listen to me unconditionally, and really provide that love and empathy, because you could relate to what I was going through. And like, yeah, I think it's important, like with this condition that we have, I like to say situation, right? I don't like to say disability. I don't like to say I like to call it a condition, or not even condition. I think situation, because situation is just something that's disassociated. It's a situation. We spilt some milk. That's the situation, right? We're both looking at it objectively. Or like, look, this situation is I'm immune compromised. I can't really shake your hand, or I can't do this. It's that kind of situation. So it encapsulates it in a separate bubble. So yeah, I think that's that vulnerability side is very healing, right? But a lot of even able-bodied people find it so hard to be vulnerable. And I think what it is, it's really hard to be vulnerable around able-bodied people who are scared of being vulnerable, right? Which is why we kind of don't say what we want to say. We're like, well, look, if I tell you what I have and I'm going to shake your hand, I'm being really vulnerable in this moment, and I'm afraid of you shooting me down and saying you're a weirdo. Or like in Flic's situation, she's being very vulnerable with her family and going like, hey, look, I'm suffering with this, and them not really bringing that love and empathy. Like that's very scary, for someone you're opening your heart up and your world, and like, this is a very scary thing for me, and people shooting it down. And I think like, like we all have that resilience within us, and, like, whether it takes, a short while or a long while, it all is the perfect amount of time for us to be vulnerable, and we're all on this journey. And, but vulnerability is very healing. It is always very, very healing. And especially in my experience is like, when I say, hey, look, you know what, I poop in a bag, and being super vulnerable and being like, people love me. And I think in my life, I've shown a lot of people my bag, and I've only had 2 people be very negative, like not very negative, but they were negative about it. I remember one, I was working at a company and we went for a run at lunchtime, and I was really close with this girl I was working with, and I could talk to her about everything. And so when I took my shirt off to run, she goes, ew, what's that? That's your bag, put it away. I'm like, I stopped and I said, listen, right? If we're going to continue being friends, I never want to hear you saying anything like that ever again. Otherwise, I'm not going to be a friend, because what you just said was, I'm really embarrassed for you. And the fact that you talk to me like that is not cool. So, do you want to reassess what you said? She goes, oh, no, I'm so sorry. Like, and then she was just so warm and empathetic. She goes, oh, look, I just didn't know how to handle it. I'm like, okay, well, next time you see it, you're going to light up like a Christmas tree. Okay. She goes, yeah, I'm so sorry. And then she just started really advocating and being more comfortable about it around me. So, yeah, it's kind of like we need a badge, right? Saying immune compromised, handle with care, and it's like, it's something that you wear. Like I went to an airport to catch a plane, and then they made me go through the body scanner, and then my bag came up, and then it was this whole debacle where I had to go into like security room, into a private room, and get escorted there. And it was just like, I was like, oh, this is like, am I dealing with primitive apes right now? I'm trying to tell you I've got a colostomy bag and you're making me
All
go
I'm
into this room. Say again, sorry?
No, you just have to say all I'm carrying is poop. It's not
Yeah,
anything
I
else.
love going through them. I like stirring them up a bit and
Yeah.
flushing
Oh,
it.
wow.
I literally put my jumper, I don't care. I'm just like, you can see it, and that it makes people a little bit uncomfortable, but don't really
Mhm.
care
Yeah.
because this
I
is
haven't
me.
I
Suck it up.
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
but now.
It will happen. Justin, you know that story that happened to me. You've heard me speak about this years ago with that doctor about, do you remember that? I'll tell this story quickly.
Yeah.
But obviously everyone knows here I'm a nurse, and we were talking about a patient that was due to have a ostomy formed because of their cancer. So I'm a palliative care nurse, so it was a defunctioning colostomy because they had cancer that was impacting on their bowel. And we just, everyone in the room knew I had a stoma except for this doctor I was working with, so the nursing team, because I like to educate people around me that I have a bag and I might be sick and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this registrar, you're going to love this, Flic. She goes, if I had a bag, I'd kill myself. And yeah, right. And everyone just looked at me because they were like, SARS is going to tee off. And guess what I did? Lifted up my shirt. I said, I've got a bag and I haven't killed myself. And she just crawled back, just like that girl that you spoke to, Justan, just crawled back into a hole and couldn't. It's like, you just don't know what people are going through. You need to be careful of what you say because it has impacts on their mental health. Lucky I'm a pretty strong person. I can take a lot of shit, literally. So, I was okay with that. But I think that's why we're all here. We're here to educate people. We're here to empower people and, just be kind to people. And yeah.
So it reminded me because I come from a Middle Eastern background, and I think in terms of like ethnicity, the bag is sort of like a taboo kind of topic of conversation. Well, poop in general is pretty taboo when it comes to ethnic backgrounds. And when I was first diagnosed with Crohn's, I lost a whole lot of weight. Everyone was like, "Oh, Rose is on a diet. Rosie's on a diet." And I'm like, no, I just shit constantly. I am not on a diet. But it's and then people got used to that. And then when talk of getting an ostomy first came up, my mum freaked out, poor thing. And we put me on infliximab to see if we could avoid it. And that was 12, 13 years ago. So I managed to avoid getting a stoma for 12, 13 years, which, I think is a testament to how hard our doctors do work for us. But, the whole idea of, this pooping disease really impacted my family relationships and that perspective of, the stoma. And then Christmas time, because I got my stoma on the 20th of December and I was home on the 22nd of December. One of my cousins and his I know, right? One of my cousins and his family came over to visit for Christmas, and we told them that I got the stoma, and I showed them the bag. I stood up and I showed them the bag, and I was pretty groggy still, but my cousin's wife started to cry, and I thought, why are you crying? This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. So it's the perspective of this being such a terrible outcome is it does affect relationships. And when you mentioned, Sarzy, the doctor that said if I had to get a bag, I'd kill myself. My mum, a couple of years before she passed away, she had severe diverticulitis, and Justan knows because he came and visited her in the hospital a couple of times. She had to get a colectomy, and she ended up connecting the end of her small intestine to her rectum. But she said, if you have to put a bag on me, just put a pillow over my head because I don't want to live with one. So, you know, that was the perspective of the bag in my family being such, you know, such a negative thing. And I'm kind of glad that I got mine after Mum passed away, because she wouldn't have to deal with this for me, you know, the pain that she would feel because of that, you know, that mindset, you know, coming from a different culture. I'm trying not to cry because I love my mum so much and I have so much respect for her and I'm so grateful for her. But that old-fashioned sort of perspective is really, it does impact on relationships and it does impact on your life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does. It has a really big impact. And yeah, I do remember that situation in hospital. It wasn't really, it was really, really difficult to watch the old school generation and how they think, you know. And it is like an education kind of thing. And I remember, like, I have friends who I've had for years, and
And my
they're kind
sister
of
just
like,
came in. Hi, Justin.
hello, how are you doing?
She's gone now, but she's hi.
Oh, yeah, it's just it's so interesting. Like people are so uneducated about it, you know, and sometimes it's I just think, are we still monkeys? Like, you know, like I think we're a little bit backwards. But something funny that a lot of my friends now say, because they're like, so you don't have to like, my friend Chris, he's like, so you don't have to sit on the toilet anymore. I'm like, bro, sitting on the toilet, that's old school. No one does that anymore. Well, you sit on the toilet? How long do you sit? Because, man, sometimes I'm there for like half an hour. I'm like, bro, you need the upgrade. This is the upgrade. This is the Ostomy 2000. Like, you need to get one of those. He goes, yeah, I need one. He goes, you get to like save so much time. I'm like, yeah, it saves so much time. And like another friend of mine, he's going through like some bowel issues, and he's like, it's just so uncomfortable. He's like, man, sometimes I wish I had a bag right now so I didn't have to deal with this. I'm like, bro, I'm telling you, this is an upgrade, you know? So like, it's just funny, you know, when you just like, when you start playing with it and you start changing the way you see it, people start to change the way they see it too. And they're like, you know, it's like, I want one. This is really cool. And it's funny because like now I have a lot of able-bodied people around me who've had to have an ostomy, and they've emailed me and messaged me and been like, oh, like, you know, after listening to your podcast or seeing you, like I did not worry one bit about it, and it made it so easy and effortless to have it, and I'm not scared to have it. It's like those messages are amazing because ultimately it is an upgrade. I'm sorry, Flic, I know you're not part of the club, but you know, like, it's great. You just empty your
I
bag.
still have
and
to
like,
sit on the toilet, Justin, and it takes a lot of my time. Like I regularly am sitting on the toilet for like 45 minutes to an hour, just going, like, my legs are going to sleep, everything's numb. I've got to wake up my body so I can get on with my day. Like I've got stuff to do, and my body's like, you need to poo. And I'm like, oh. So yes, it is an upgrade. Like there is so many times where like my guts are going crazy over something or whatever. Obviously, like I've got comorbidities, so sometimes other things are causing it, but it sets the Crohn's off. And sometimes I'm like, I just want to open a little valve and just let it out there so that it's not coming this way and it's not going. I just want it to be done, you know. So I fully get that. And I do think it's an upgrade. And it's like, it is absolutely the way that we speak about it. You know, I think it's just like, I definitely came from one of those families that was, we just don't speak about stuff, right? Like they were very supportive of me in terms of like coming to hospital with me. And if it wasn't for them, honest to God, I would not be here. I would not be alive. They got me into counseling. They got me into a naturopath. Those two decisions are why I am still here, because I was adamant that I was going to end things, right? So I am here because of them. But there was a limit to what they grew up with in terms of that knowledge and their comfort level of talking about things. And they still in their head to some degree think of disability and think of chronic illness and all the things that go with it as being like, it's the worst of the worst of the worst. It's the worst thing that could possibly happen. And it's also private. It's something that we don't talk about. It's in the family. It's not something that, you know, they bring up. And, you know, they make comments like, oh, you were such a healthy little girl. And I'm like looking at it going, I wasn't. I was having symptoms. They weren't connected until it was like puberty. But I wasn't a well little girl. I was actually a little girl that was sick and had learned to mask it in order to survive, right? Like I was in a family where we didn't just routinely sit there and go, you know what, I'm not feeling good today. It was like we buckle up, we soldier on, we don't acknowledge it, you know, that kind of stuff. And I think it makes people really uncomfortable. We are sort of inadvertently bringing up people's internalized ableism all the time. We are reminding them that disability exists, that chronic illness exists, that it can happen to them at any time. It's the same reason why we've got this clash with people with the pandemic now, you know, where people are getting angry if you wear a mask and things like that, because it's in their face. It's a reminder. It exists. It hasn't gone away. It could make you disabled. It could make you chronically ill. It could take your life. Like these are the things that the world largely doesn't still have the vocabulary for. They still don't understand widely even how to sit with pain and discomfort. Like we're taught to ignore it or bury it or, you know, all those kinds of things. So I spend a lot of my time trying to actually allow people to kind of sit in discomfort, learn from it, sit with your trauma, sit with your pain, like have these conversations, have these important conversations. And even in my own, you know, family, I've got two nieces. The older one, she's 12 going on 13. And I think it was last year maybe that I saw her, and a conversation about some illness stuff had come up because she'd recently had terrible food poisoning that actually put her in the hospital. And that was really traumatizing for her. And she was going through food aversion. You know, the foods that had been around during that time that she got sick, she wouldn't touch them anymore. And so I was sort of talking about how I went through food aversion and all of that kind of stuff. And that, you know, that your taste buds change over time. I was kind of educating her, and she finally asked, well, what is it? What is Crohn's disease? And so we're sitting at this table and I'm trying to sort of explain to someone who is quite young in a way that she's going to understand what Crohn's disease is. And I wanted to be real with her and sort of say the full spectrum. Yeah, it can be really, really bad and it can really, really change your life. But I was also, you know, saying to her, yeah, but I've also been I'm an author. And I was a professional dancer and a choreographer, and I've lived overseas and I've done all of these things. So don't think that this perspective, you know, on what disease and disability is means that it's the end of your life and that you won't achieve anything and that you can't do anything that you want and that you can't still be like a happy, thriving person. It's the full spectrum. It's just, to me, it's like explaining to somebody that you've got this little palette of colors for your paintbrush, and most people are living off this small palette of colors, and they don't realize that there's actually 25 other colors inside the paint palette. And when you live with a chronic condition, suddenly you have access to the 25 other colors, and that life is a bigger spectrum, and it's a bigger painting, and there's a bigger palette that you get to work from. And it's sort of more like saying to people, look at all these other colors that are here that you can play with and that you can learn from. And when you reframe it, it just changes people's perspective, and it gives them permission to think about things in a different way and to start asking questions rather than always just getting to the point where they live life as though this terrible, terrible thing, I'm not even going to think about it. And then when it happens, so then they've got to unpack everything. And it's more like I try to say to people, unpack it now and unpack it in the process. Don't wait until something happens to you, because really at some point in your life, something will happen to you. Very few people get through the entirety of their life without actually experiencing something that happens to them either mentally or physically that puts some boundaries or some restrictions or something, changes the way that they live their life. And I think it's just a real pity that most of the world encourages each other to pretend like as if that's not the reality that they're actually going to find. And it makes it so much harder rather than just saying like, disability is part of the spectrum of all species, not just human beings, of all species. You see a dog running around with 3 legs. It's having a wow of a time playing with other dogs. It's got the biggest smile on its face. So why are we treating ourselves as though it's like the end of the earth? It's just something that we need to be educated on. I think we can talk about it in both sides of that spectrum. Yes, it can be really bad, and yes, it can be really challenging and traumatizing, but it also can give you this palette of colors to play with that you didn't have before, and it can make you more empathetic, and it can make you more powerful and a force for connection, and give you access to all these wonderful people that you never would have known without it. Like it's about that mindset thing that you were talking about, Justin. I think it's just giving people the vocabulary and then giving them the opportunity and the permission to think about it and to have those conversations, and then it all changes.
Yeah, I completely agree, Flic, with everything you're saying. Like, it's all about having the mindset. It's going to be bad and there's going to be good in every situation. I like the way Justin actually says that it's a situation, because I don't really like the word condition either. Like, or disorder. I know there's certain conditions with those named, and I always respect the people want to call how they identify within their whatever they have. I respect it, but I always say, if someone says to me you can't call it that, I will try and win that argument, because I think no one has the right to say it's wrong, but we have our opinions whether we like it or not. But going to that toilet thing, it's funny because like me and Flic are the only ones who don't have the upgrade yet. So when you say that, because I like Doctor Who and I just think of Cyberman, whenever you say that you get the upgrade. With that, like, actually the other day I was on the toilet about 45 minutes, because I have a routine. Before Crohn's it was the night time, but now it's the morning. So every time I get up in the morning, I go to the toilet, and if I don't go in the toilet, if I go in the middle of the day, I feel like that's not right. I kind of sense, like I was talking about blood, I kind of sense if I don't, even when I don't look in the pan, I kind of sense if it's blood, because it feels warmer when I go. And I say that to someone who doesn't know what Crohn's is, they think, what are you talking about? But I do that, and I was on there for a good 30 minutes the other day, and I just felt my leg getting heavier and heavier for the pins and needles, because I just did it. I don't know why. I just like the feeling of pins and needles. I just like the feeling of it. So I did it on purpose. I'll sit there with my right leg, and I'm not moving my right leg for about maybe 20 minutes. And I know it's not good to have pins and needles, because you get blood clots and stuff like that. I just like the feeling, and then I'm getting up. I'm getting up off it, and then I'm limping. I'm limping. I'm holding on the rail, trying to get back to my room. And this is early in the morning, about maybe 9 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, I'm struggling, and then yeah, I just like the. It's weird that I just like the feeling of that. But yeah, it is crazy. I like the feeling that I haven't got the upgrade yet, because I think we should, I guess, appreciate that we can go to the toilet. Because I guess on you guys with your stomas, you maybe, because the odd day you'll feel like maybe you do miss sitting on that toilet and doing it that way, because it's because you're not gonna, it depends on what kind of stoma you have, because there's different types where you kind of get reversible. If you have a permanent one, you can't take that back, really, can you? So I
know what I miss, Mason?
Yeah.
I got my stoma before social media was cool. We had iPhones and real smartphones.
Yeah.
So I miss playing games, because I used to just read magazines.
Yeah.
So you can't just sit there, take a good and play on your phone, because I need both my hands.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a bit of
Sarzy, I've
heartless,
got a whole bunch of I've got an iPad, like my iPad goes, basically I've had situations where I haven't had time to pick up a device and make it to the toilet. And then I tell you what, I could read for you verbatim every ingredient of every aerosol can, every
Yes.
shampoo bottle, because you're sitting there and you're just like sitting there for just countless times and you're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
You're reading anything and everything to fill the time. So I generally take my iPad in, and yeah, look, it's some good quality gaming time. I've also done all sorts of stuff. Like there's been times where I'm about to host a radio show and I'm like, geez, I've got to get off this. And I'm just basically praying to my colon, like just finish, just complete yourself now, because I need to. And so I'm literally doing work. Like I'm preparing a script. I'm doing all sorts of stuff on my iPad, because I'm like, I'm not going to have time to do both. Like I've written parts of my book on the toilet. I have honestly, just about everything you can imagine has been done on the loo. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things where sometimes you're sitting there and doing more things than at once. But there is other times too where you're like, that's an hour and a half of my life that I will never get back.
Memorable experience.
On that note, Flic, honestly, I don't think Justan and Sarzy really recognise how much time they used to spend on the toilet, because in the last few months I've done the maths, and on average I would be getting 3 hours a day back. So I've got
I've forgotten.
Day, and I'm just like, I don't even know what to do with myself. I've watched so much TV. I've started writing a novel. I'm doing so much stuff. And I thought to myself, and I think to myself often, I don't even know how I got through the day spending so much time and energy doing a poop. Like it's so time consuming, so energy draining. And I mean, still having my bottom, I still need to use it most days actually. It's more often than they tell you when you come out of hospital, but give me a week and I'll never have to use it again.
Yay.
But but yeah, like 3 hours a day. That's
I mean, it used to be a thing, like, when I used to work in a corporate office, I remember what would always happen, and I would always laugh about this, but it is actually really frustrating, because everyone wants to do the lights that turn themselves off after a period of time. And so inevitably I would spend about half of my pooping time in pitch black darkness. And because I'm really short, even with waving my arms and whatever, like it wouldn't bring the lights back on. So it'd basically be like, hopefully I would have my device with me. So basically I'm just this one bright torch light coming out of like one cubicle, sitting there with my dry shampoo, which is the only thing that seems to get rid of the smell, so that other people walking in aren't like, oh my God, what has happened? So it's those sorts of things that, people don't really talk about very much. Like you just be like, where's Flic gone? Oh, she's gone to the bathroom. Like an hour later, you're like, geez, I've got a boardroom meeting. I've got to get out. And you can't. You're stuck on the toilet. You've got to stay there. The lights have switched off. All the systems in the bathroom are gone. Your legs have gone to sleep. You got it's just one of those things. And then someone would walk in and like all the lights are flashing and you're like, oh God, So these sort of things occur when you are a person that needs to sit on the toilet for a long period of time, or when someone else is like, it's like one cubicle. Are you going to be finished soon? Don't know. Probably not. Like, those kinds of things are such joys to navigate.
Lucky in my last corporate job, I had a work wife, and she would come into the bathroom after. If I'd been in there for maybe 15 minutes, she'd come into the toilets and be like, Rose, are you okay? Do you need anything? So, that was really, really lucky, because she understood, because she's disabled as well. So, she really looked after me, and we're still friends. So that's good.
Yeah, that is good. It's good to keep friends. Like, there's so many good friendships you find throughout this IBD community, I think. And like, I think what I found with the toilet is, if I don't push, I think I ain't got blood. Like that is how I kind of navigate around that. And because if I do push, I might get blood, and it happens. It's a normal thing, and like it's why we said before, we're like with vampires and bloods, and like the like how that kind of relates in a little bit. Other than we don't. Well, you could say we live on blood, but we don't. We can eat other things. Last thing, guys. But before we go, I'm gonna ask everyone like what IBD means to you, and then just maybe just give what IBD means to you. I'm gonna go in reverse from the way we start. So I'm gonna start with you, Rose, and just say what IBD means to you.
IBD means a lot to me. So it means not only this illness that we've been presented with, but it's a lifetime of being able to learn and grow and develop and learn to love our bodies and appreciate them for everything that they do for us, especially surviving everything that has tried to kill us, and having that level of appreciation for our bodies that a lot of people don't have. It's also about learning to appreciate and love everything in life, because there's so much beauty in the world that we get to experience. And I think that had we not have had, you know, a lot of it taken away from us, we wouldn't appreciate the beauty of what we have at any given point in our lives. So I'm really grateful for IBD in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I like we start off with not liking it, and then we're here talking about it. So yeah, it is great to appreciate. Thanks, Rose. Justan?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go, and I 100% agree with what Rose said. It is like the biggest blessing, and it's also like that GPS that tells you if you're on the right course or not, because so often we live in our thinking mind and not often in our gut. And there are studies that shows that, you know, there's a lot of brain neurons in your gut, so there is a really big intelligence in there. And so the way I see it is there's that gut brain that's kind of telling you, hey, this situation that you're in, we don't want to be there, we should be somewhere else, this is not a good job, or this is not a good set of friends to be around, or this is not a good place to live. It's like, and when you start listening to it and living life, or when I started listening to it and I started living life from my gut and really going, okay, what do I feel like doing? That's when my life started becoming a lot more colorful, a lot more adventurous, a lot more meaningful. So yeah, that's what IBD means. It means that it's my GPS of how to be happy in my life purpose.
Yeah, I agree there, Justin. It is a GPS, and it's how we travel, how we locate, wherever we go. We're hoping we don't get a flare up or something happens to our Crohn. So yeah, that's great, Justin. Flic?
Of you, Rose and Justin have said, but yeah, for me, I think IBD means humanity. I don't think I really would have appreciated, understood, or ever invested the amount of time that I have in trying to understand what it is to be a human being had I not had Crohn's disease. I just think it's been the biggest conduit really for me to explore all of that, and to then appreciate the humanity in other people, and to see the connectedness that we have between each other, and even to, you know, our planet. It's really made me realize the scientific aspects, the biological aspects, the psychological aspects of how all of it works together. And that's been and continues to be probably my biggest passion. And it's such an ongoing, you know, work in progress thing. I'm always being more educated and being stretched and getting through all of that. But I think I just would have gone through life like a lot of other people who would have been focused more on finding my identity, maybe in my job, finding my identity maybe in that kind of thing. And I'm so glad in a way that this has forced me to find my identity within my humanity, to really sit inside myself and understand who I am, and to find power and to find flaws and to find the whole spectrum inside of that, and to be therefore less connected to any of those identifying things. It's allowed me to have so many different careers rather than just one. And so it gives me that kind of power to look at things that are coming down the road or things I might be interested in and go, yeah, I'll try that. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll host a radio show. Sure. Yep. Yep. I'll write a book. Yep. Like literally nothing comes up that I think, oh, well, I can't do that, or I shouldn't do that. If it feels right, I now chase it, and I chase it with my teeth out. And again, that's really come from having Crohn's and having from invested in that, that aspect of my humanity and finding my identity in there, and knowing that my identity is a constantly changing thing because it goes with the changes that come with life. And I think that sort of actually allows me to be more resilient and appreciate life more, way more than so many able-bodied people that I meet who are just like so stuck in this one, no, I have to be this, and then they sort of stunt their own growth and become really quite, I think, despondent in a way, and a bit, yeah, just a bit miserable. I don't find myself miserable for the same reasons as a lot of other people, you know, sort of, I roll with life. So thank you, Crohn's, for doing that. As hard as what you are also an incredible gift.
Yeah, it is an incredible gift, and I think that's really great what you're saying there, Flic. And I love what you say that when IBD means humanity. I think that's a really good saying, and like it means humanity. We're still here. Maybe a long time ago where the treatment wouldn't have been there to help us, and like there wouldn't be stomas, there wouldn't be medication, there wouldn't be research, there wouldn't be scientists. So it's great we have all that support now, and yeah, like I think the GPs and the whole healthcare system. There's another episode we can do another time, because I think there's a lot of us that would love to talk about that. But Sarzy, do you mind doing what IBD means to you?
Well, like we've all sort of touched on today, IBD is more than just a bowel disease. As we all know, we've all got other ailments. Like to me, it is arthritis. It's the fertility journey that I'm on. So like Flic was saying, it has made her resilient. It's made me very resilient. It's made me a very strong person that, I'm stronger than most people that I know in my, immediate circle. I've been through a lot more than what others have gone through and worry about. And I am grateful for that, because it has taught me to really, like everyone else is saying here, appreciate my life, and as hard as it is, what I am going through at the moment. It also, I am able to sort of flip that around and allow that to empower others to feel confident and to appreciate what we've got, and just really empower other people to have their own voice. And I think that's what IBD's taught me, because I didn't get to experience that as a younger person going through IBD. So I've really learned a lot along the way in the many years. So in the many years that I've had IBD. So I'm grateful for it. As crazy as that sounds, I love it. And I love Susie. And if I didn't have her, I wouldn't be here on this podcast. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful for IBD and all the shitty things that come along with it.
Yeah, I love that, Sarzy, and I appreciate everything you say around it and your fertility journey. I think that is really good, because not many people speak about that, and I think it'll be good in future episodes where we have certain episodes focused around each of us. So maybe we got healthcare, we got fertility, where we can have some of us lead them rather than me lead it every time. I think that'll be good. So we take it in turns to maybe lead in and do. Someone asked me to do an introduction, and I sit back. So I think that'd be really good. But I completely agree with you, Sarzy, because with everything you said. I'm going to say what IBD means to me as well. So IBD means to me I think life. I'm gonna say IBD means life to me because it literally is life now. Well, it has been since 2017 for me. Like I do believe that since I was younger, so I would have it younger. I think we get it younger, and then we just get it as we get older. Because I always remember when I had a reaction or I had biscotti bolognese, and I had it and I loved it for so long, and then once I just couldn't. I was just being sick over it, and I've never actually been sick over having Crohn's or anything, but I never had that diarrhea or anything like that while having Crohn's. So yeah, IBD means to me it's just life. I think 'cause I love what everyone else has said, like humanity, and yeah, it's life now, and it's not going to change unless there was a cure. But if there was a cure, in a way, I would want there to be a cure, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to stop talking about Crohn's or IBD. I don't want it to be forgotten about if there was a cure. I think, but yeah, that's me. I think that was a really good way to finish the episode around like saying about IBD, what it means to us, with especially because IBD means a lot to us all. But yeah, this is a great first episode because it's been action packed. We talked about loads of stuff around relationships. Relationships has been the key topic. I know I said at the beginning we would talk about workplace, but I think we could just do that as a separate episode because workplace is an episode in itself, because there's so many different topics we can do. But to anyone who's watching this today, if you're in Australia, if you're in the UK, I think that's a really good thing about this series is that we have different audiences from UK and Australia because I think it's going to be really cool. But to anyone who is seeing this, we hope you get something out of it about relationships because it is a topic that isn't talked about a lot within IBD, and I think we might have started off something here. But it's been a really good start to Digestive Diaries, and yeah, I look forward to see what this brings, and I'm looking forward to seeing what more topics that we're going to talk about. But from today, I guess we've learned stuff from each other as well. And yeah, it's been great. But thanks to Sarzy, Flic, Justan and Rose. And I'm looking forward to the next one we do. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it. But to anyone watching, listening, we hope you've enjoyed it as well. We hope you have a nice day, night, morning, afternoon, whatever time it is for you. But yeah, it's been great. And but thanks everyone.